It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 325. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi, Bill.
Tam.
Hey.
This feels like a very classic episode, because this was kind of the group for a very, 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 very long time. People had other commitments, so yeah, we're down several folks. Micro topic. In an attempt to battle the hellscape that's been 2020, I have started uploading the footage of cats on my security camera to YouTube on a channel called Catfriend Television. It's getting a shocking amount of viewership, which is just, I think, everyone that, I know. But, yeah, it's just pictures of the neighborhood cats coming to visit my porch. Like 20, 30-second clips. It's delightful.
That's awesome.
So,
do you have lots of neighborhood cats?
Yes, we do. We have this gorgeous Siamese. We have, one or two, fuzzy black cats. We've got a gray tiger stripe cat. We've got a brown tabby. There's the cat we call Four. There's the cat we call Tripod, which is a three-legged female calico that we're trying to tame and be friends with.
Are you feeding these cats?
I am feeding these cats.
Okay, that's why you are friends with so many cats.
Yes, because it started off as just a couple, and now word has gotten around. Also, we've had a possum visit. We've had a couple of very rotund raccoons visit. Also birds. Also birds, will eat the cat food, apparently, if it's left out. So I have to, time the feedings. Otherwise, a flock of birds will just show up and eat it all. Anyway, it's a thing I'm doing just on a whim. And yeah. So before we started recording, I basically, every so often, we will be sitting around talking on the voice chat, and we basically have a conversation that we should have recorded in the first place. So
it happens a lot.
It happens a shocking amount. And we realize we're halfway through and we're like, oh, hey, we probably should have been recording for that. That would have maybe been interesting.
Whoops.
So we almost did that today. But, Tam, you got a package from Sony today.
So, I haven't talked about it much on the show, but I've been trying to get a PS5. And normally, I don't actually care that much about getting the console right away. In this particular case, my living situation has changed. In that there's I live with another person now, and there's another TV set up that's mostly a movie box. But smart TVs are I find smart TVs kind of flaky.
Yes, they are. They're horrible.
And so there's constantly connection issues and so on with it. And this is a thing that's being used nightly, so it's pretty frustrating. Plus,
and the apps on smart TVs are notoriously bad. The Netflix app is horrible usually.
Yeah, and it's functional in a broad sense, but anyway, what I've been running into is what I really want to do, because I know I want a PS5. I really want to put the PS4 connect to the other TV so it's A, more functional, and B, when I'm using it, I can play games on it, because playing games from bed sounds like fun and not something I've done in a very long time, but convenient, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Difficulty acquiring a PS5.
Oh yeah,
I think I'm the only one of our immediate friend group that has one, or at least the friend group associated with this podcast.
Yeah, we know. There's a podcasting partner we know who also has one, and that's it. It's a giant pain to get.
Yes, it was a giant pain to get an initial pre-order, let alone the nonsense that's come after that.
Yeah, like I thought the pre-order, basically my expectation was that the pre-order period was going to be a mad scramble. And I kind of idly looked into it, but I didn't look into it super hard because I was like, at the time I didn't think I needed it. So I didn't really bother. I was like, I'll wait for my usual console rule. And, 5 games, at least 2 of which are out, and the other 3 must have a release date. So I was like, whatever, I'll wait. And then we got wind of the PS5 launch, which had 5 games I wanted to play off the bat. Although I've already played Bugsnax, so that's 1 down.
But hey, you'll get Bugsnax again for free.
Yeah, I guess I will. But yeah, it's like basically impossible to get. It's the most. I want to say it's currently the best-selling PlayStation.
That seemed like
it's the best-selling PlayStation launch.
Probably.
Yeah. It's the fastest selling PlayStation launch, I think.
Yeah,
because like
there's
now
a historical issue there that's a little hard to get over.
Right.
PS2 was dumb.
But PS2 was a really bad launch.
No, it had the same sort of launch that this had in terms of difficulty to get.
Yeah, I remember. I remember calling various places trying to get one, and I ended up finally getting my PlayStation 2 when someone needed rent and needed money.
Well, and here's the other thing. Compounding all of this is the pandemic. Because once upon a time, if this had happened, say, last year, you'd have, if you want one, you can wait for it online, or you could, find a store and go in. And, maybe you've got to drive around to a bunch of different stores. But if you've got a bunch of different stores near you, or you live somewhere remote enough that they're not that you don't have just a crowd of people waiting outside.
Yeah, I mean, you eventually learn the stocking patterns of a couple stores.
Right.
And you check them on the day they restock.
Yep. And, if you've either got enough of them that you can run around, or you've got the one and you probably, know a person or two there who will be like, oh yeah, you should show up on Thursday morning, or whatever the case is.
Or they just get sick of listening to you and they'll tell you when it's going to arrive.
Yeah. All of that is out the window right now. Target has big signs out front, at least in my area, big signs out front saying, do not come in this store for a PS5. We will not sell it to you in person. Online only. And all sorts of other places have been having a similar problem. It brought, the one time I've seen it listed on Amazon, it almost brought Amazon's site down, which is saying something. And then it's just brought everybody else's sites just completely down. They go up, sites crash. Maybe you got one, probably you didn't. And then they're sold out in under a minute.
Yeah. And that's we talked about this briefly when the pre-orders happened, but that thing with bot networks never went away. That has been every single thing to come out. Every shipment has been gobbled up by bots.
Yep.
And of those, the one that seemed the places that seem least susceptible to bot orders are Costco, because you have to have a Costco paid account, Sam's, because you have to have a Sam's paid account, and Sony Direct.
Yep.
And is that last one just because they're being very actively anti-bot or something?
Yeah.
Well, and you also have to have a valid PlayStation account to even begin the queue process.
Yeah, you need a valid PlayStation Network account. You need, and they have a queue. They have a website queue, so it doesn't explode, and spamming it doesn't do you much good. But yeah, and a bunch of other random places have gotten them, and it has not gone well for them. I saw them go for sale at Kohl's, and I was like, what? Kohl's? Okay, sure. Managed to get all the way through checkout and get my card charged, and 2 days later, my order was canceled.
Well, and similarly, I was sweating bullets like the entire time because I got mine through Sam's Club, but like Sam's Club canceled a ton of orders.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid that like any day now I would get that message saying, oopsie, we can't fulfill the order.
Yep.
So like up until the point where it shipped, I just wasn't sure if it was going to happen. And even then, like I didn't get mine very close to the release. It was about a week and a half late.
Yeah.
And I was like a day one pre-order. So yeah, I mean, it has been madness. It is super frustrating, and it seems to just be a side effect of this year as well, because like the all of the processor launches have gotten bot attacks. All of the video card launches have gotten bot attacks. There's this one organization in the UK that brags that they have snagged 3,500 PlayStation 5 orders that they're members, and they seem to be claiming that like this is something that people that are out of work are doing to recuperate costs from the COVID. But like, okay, you're going to have 400 pounds per device in liquid capital to buy these things. I don't buy that. Like the amount of assets that you would have to buy that large number of units. Like, I don't buy someone's out of work and, snagging these up to flip them quickly to make a buck. One of the funny things that happened, though, is a bot network snagged 1,000 Xbox Series X pre-orders. Microsoft got wind of it, canceled all the pre-orders.
Nice. I mean, there are plenty of people who I've talked to and heard talking about it that are like, yeah, I set up a bot so that I could get one for myself.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing is like it is. And these bot networks are charging like $75 per month to have a bot that you can snag one with. Like, this is madness.
Yeah, it's like a whole secondary market. And the point where you're like, it's like, no, am I going to pay a 200 to 400% markup to a scalper? No, absolutely not.
The GeForce 3060 just released. Like, the 60 series of video cards usually isn't that highly sought after. It is a budget video card for the most part. And they were all scalped on day one. Like, it is just something about the specific environment that we're in. I don't know if people are just bored or being malicious or what, but yeah.
I mean, everything's forced onto online sales. And so once you can no longer do that.
I think Sony is trying to bankrupt the scalpers. Because, like, there was an announcement that came out last week that they are planning on rushing 10 million units to market, 5 million of which should make it out before the end of the year. So, like, eventually, it is going to outpace what the bot networks can buy.
Yeah. Well, and that was a huge reason why I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm going to pay more than MSRP for it. And like, for all that I say that I've spent a bunch of time going after this, I haven't spent a ton of effort going after it. It's like,
right.
I have a thing that gives me
watch alerts. A Twitter account.
Yeah, I have a Twitter account. I was following like 5 or 6 Twitter accounts that had different pieces of information. I would get a notification when something would come in and then take a quick look. It was never more than a minute of my time.
Well, and honestly, the PlayStation Direct queues have probably been the longest part.
Well, and the thing about the PlayStation Direct queue is, and that was PlayStation Direct is where I managed to get one. PlayStation Direct queue, you just go into the queue and then you just wait. I check a page in 45 minutes, and that's it. Which is way better than blaze through Kohl's or Walmart checkout and then have my order canceled on me. I happened to be in a Walmart for unrelated reasons and saw someone just like walk in and buy the last one they had. I was like, "What? Are you serious?
Is this real life?"
He was like, "Can I buy that?" And the people in the electronics counter were like, yeah, sure, I guess it's there." He was like, "Cool, I'm gonna buy it immediately."
Yeah. So okay, the package you got today though
But yes, so I got everything. I managed to get this thing, got the package, got a shipping notification, got the package to show up, or got a package to show up, and picked it up, and I was like, cool. No, it's the controller and game that I bought to go with it.
I'm still terribly confused that you bought a physical game, but whatever.
More tradition than anything.
The controller is really good. And I would I kind of want a second one so that I can use it with Windows. And this is coming from somebody who prefers staggered stick design. It's a really good controller.
So my thing with that is the way I play my PlayStation currently is I have one controller plugged in and one controller that I'm actually using because my system is too far away for me to use the wire as a wired controller, nor do I really want to. So I wanted to so that I can continue doing that so I don't have to remember to get up and plug it in every time. And it would be nice to eventually have a charging base, but that's
also back ordered.
Also crazy sold out everywhere.
Those were briefly more available.
They're more
Have they become not available now again? They're
more available. They're just hard to acquire.
They're going in and out of stock all the time.
Yeah. The charge thing, the media remote, and the Pulse headset.
The media remote thing amuses me greatly. I feel like I don't entirely understand that one.
I mean, I have a media remote for my PlayStation 3 only because there's no PlayStation button that works on a PlayStation 4 controller when you have it hooked to a PlayStation 3.
What?
Yeah, if you hook you can hook a PlayStation 4 controller up to a PlayStation 3, and it is immediately a better experience.
Sure.
But the PlayStation button on the PlayStation 4 doesn't work as the PlayStation button on the PlayStation 3.
I repeat, what?
So I have a media remote sitting there only for when I need to hit the PlayStation button and exit a game.
Interestingly, I actually kind of want a media remote for the PS5, but not for me. Because that's going to be in a lot of ways, that's going to be a Grey's Anatomy box just as much as it is a gaming console. And that's just a better experience than trying to juggle a controller and a remote
I will
to watch
say,
movies on.
This time around, the interface is significantly better for that split purpose because there's a separate tab at the top for games and one for video. So all of your apps that you would want to watch, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, etc., are in their own tab so that you don't have to keep fighting things in sort order.
Oh, I was just thinking for hey, I can turn on and off the TV and edit volume all on one device rather than having to juggle two.
Right. I just mean UI design itself is better this time.
That's good too. But because now that I've got a box here, I'm fiending. I unpacked the controller and was like, let's check out this controller. It's a really great controller. And the thing that I was commenting on was I think the PS4 controller is one of the best designed controllers out there, and the PS5 manages to top it.
The only thing that I don't love, there is a single design feature that I do not love. It is the sort of flat bits on the controller, aka that black stripe that's not smooth and doesn't lay flush with the rest of the controller design. Over a long period of holding it, it feels weird to have that there.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, haven't held it for a long period of time. It was immediately more comfortable in my hand. I'm a little concerned that controller is going to look like a mess in a few years.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing that you need to do. You need to grab your phone and you need to take the highest, closest res picture you can of the white bits on the back of the controller.
Just for comparison's sake?
No. There's an Easter egg. You think that's just a grip. It is tiny X's and O's and triangles and squares.
Wow.
Yep. as is the rough finish on the outside of the PlayStation 5. It looks just like a stippled finish, but no, it's tiny, tiny, tiny micro PlayStation symbols.
They've done that for a visual thing before, but I didn't know of them doing it as a texture thing before.
That's
like the
pretty impressive detail.
Level of detail.
I want to say they started doing that on the PS4 touchpads for later controllers.
Yeah, there's a distinct difference between the two PS4 controllers I have, because I didn't get a second one for quite some time. And I'm proud to say that my launch day PS4 controller lasted me until the launch of the PS5, albeit just barely.
I have killed 2 PlayStation 4 controllers, as well as my favorite of the aftermarket controllers, the Ori FPS Plus. I've killed one of those. I am apparently really hard on thumbsticks.
I'm pretty gentle on thumbsticks, but I had the PS4 for quite a while.
Like, playing Destiny involves a lot of running.
Yep.
So, like, I'm constantly just mashing those to run.
Which, by the way, I hate that. I hate that UX.
Me too.
What is it called? Like, it drives me bonkers that's the accepted.
And it's the thing that everyone uses now.
Yeah, everyone uses it, and it drives me batty because it's really, I do not like thumbstick clicks for anything.
So in theory, you will join the PlayStation 5 world soonish.
I mean, I'll believe it when I'm literally holding it in my hands.
That was me. I went through so much hell to get it, and I went through a fraction of the hell you went through, and I did not want to believe until it was really, really, really there. So
I'm not on the place with Spider-Man.
I've not started Spider-Man yet. Like, I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know why I can't say that word.
I will say it would be really terrible if they cancel after sending you a controller and a game.
I'd be pretty mad about it. I do have tracking information. Just needs to actually arrive.
So last week, we basically took up an entire show talking about WoW, and I have one really brief topic, hopefully brief at least. I have been running a lot of heroics to get gear.
Got a weapon yet?
I got a weapon finally today. It is not a great weapon. It has versatility on it as a two-handed sword, so I'm guessing it was intended to be a tanking weapon. But it doesn't matter. It's a serviceable two-handed weapon. So there is a problem with their design for the legendary system. So, like, it's cool that they let you craft them, but you still have to get the pattern before you can craft it. And the patterns drop off specific bosses, some of which are fairly rare drops. What this is leading to is, after every boss kill, a number of people drop from the party and leave the group.
Is there no penalty for doing that?
There's a 30-minute penalty, and quite honestly, heroics go fast enough that you would think that you couldn't, like, you can clear the dungeon in before the time your penalty would be up. So I don't know if there's like a glitch or something that you can get away from triggering the penalty or what, but yeah, like, there's one dungeon that I have run, which is in the Night Fae area, where I have never seen a group stay together past the first boss. Like, there may be a couple of us that stick around, but we've rotated out half the party. So, like, it's a real bad design. Also, like, to me, there's a really simple way around this. Like, I like the concept of specific gear dropping in specific dungeons. I'm fine with that. But maybe
having to farm it from one place is definitely an improvement over the previous system of maybe it'll drop somewhere.
Right. Like, I would rather they just make, like, that a loot pool for the dungeon, and that any of the bosses have a chance to drop anything off that loot pool, so that at least there's, or even, like, so, okay, fine.
Didn't they do this for some other situation?
Yes, they've done this before, and they didn't learn their lesson. But, like, most definitely the legendary patterns should be chance to drop off anything in the dungeon. Simple as that. But I don't know, it's leading to this super frustrating behavior where I don't know, like there's a dungeon that is a choose your own boss adventure, and if I ever join and the tank makes an obvious beeline for one specific encounter, I know without a doubt as soon as it's down, he's going to drop.
Oh,
It's just like it's happened so many times. Thankfully, the queue system prioritizes you so that you get a tank or a healer really quickly. But yeah, it's like this is a really bad decision design wise. And you'd have thought they could have seen this coming because I'm pretty sure this has happened before.
that's a bummer, though. Like,
Yeah, it's.
I mean, put the good loot on the final boss is a thing that they have
yeah, that's true.
previously had to learn. So I'm surprised why they didn't do it this time.
Well, and like one of the most common things right now is that Night Fae dungeon, the very first drop or very first boss drops a two-handed axe. So if an axe does not drop, you're almost always going to lose your DPS warriors or your death knights. Just simple as that. Usually paladins too, and it's just like it's like clockwork. You can tell what class you're going to lose at what boss. And like I feel, I don't know, obligation to see a dungeon through unless like literally I'm the only one there.
That's because you have a deep seated memory of when you had a reputation at stake.
I know.
Also, you recognize that there are other people in the dungeon behind those characters.
So here's the thing that's going to bite people in the ass. And I don't know if this is widely known yet, but there were significant changes to the dungeon finder system. Almost always, you are in a dungeon now made up of 2 or 3 people from your same server.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like they have changed the logic of their queue finder to favor same guild or same server. Like there's been a lot of times where I have just queued for a random dungeon and ended up with 2 or 3 other people in the guild that also just queued for a random dungeon. So I noticed this during the Headless Horseman event because I was almost always in there with guild names I recognized. Brotherhood of the Blade, Nivius Lepus, old school guilds that I recognized.
Oh my goodness, the bunnies are still around?
The bunnies are Foda bunnies. They're still around, live and kicking. Horde really is unchanged. All of the guild names that were big and vanilla are still alive and kicking. They did not suffer the mass exodus that Alliance did.
Are there any names I would recognize, I wonder?
Possibly. I'm still in contact with Bovin all the time, and he was a...
oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bovin and I talk like on a daily basis. He's playing a hunter these days, though, instead of a warrior. He used to be this big black bull warrior Tauren character, and now he's mostly playing his Tauren hunter. I think he basically got to the point where he wasn't tanking anymore, and he didn't really love DPS warriors. Every so often, I run into a name I recognize, especially from the roleplay community Horde side. There's a lot of people over there, like Caffeine as a guild is still around, which is bizarre that there were a ton of role players in there, but there were. I think they were also the ones that would come over and attack people in Goldshire because they were also PvPers. But yeah, it's weird because I think in the grand scheme of things, this behavior will bite people in the ass because they maybe don't realize they're in there with a lot of people from their server.
I mean, unless the queue itself stops grouping them with these people, then that's probably not going to matter.
I mean, groups and activities still exist, especially since you can't queue for mythics, and you either have to use the party finder system, and that involves actually communicating with people directly, kind of like in Final Fantasy XIV, or you actually have a static group of people that you're playing with. doing anything above heroics requires some level of interaction. I don't know. It's a disappointing design decision.
Seems like a thing that might change in like a month.
Maybe, yeah.
I was going to ask, because I didn't really get this from last time, is I don't associate WoW with like really great, interesting solo content. Is Torghast like got stuff going on that makes it really interesting to do?
Yeah, it's so Torghast is a series of towers, and we've only seen 4 of them so far. And every tower has a shtick. So, like, one of the ones this week is if you're out of combat, there's a chance that an assassin will spawn and attack you. So, you are incentivized to never leave combat. And there's some stuff you can do to help with this mission. Like, there are these things called Maw Rats. And notoriously, they take a little bit of damage and they run away. So, if you're being careful, you can aggro a Maw Rat at the beginning of the level and just never finish it off. And it will keep you in combat for the entirety of the level. And this specific tower has a ton of Maw Rats. There was another one this week where it's all casters, and so there's 6 floors in a layer. 6 floors in a layer. Completing the highest layer basically gives you all the rewards for all the previous layers. So once you've unlocked layer 3, on these new towers, I didn't have to go start back at layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. I could just pop in at layer 3.
Oh, nice.
And go in and get all the rewards. But so this was all casters. There were all these like shadow ghost looking things, and every floor it increased a stacking magical buff, causing more magical damage. So like it started off as like 3% and then 6% extra magic damage to, I don't remember what, I assume it scaled in that method. So, but yeah, so by the time you fought the boss on layer 6, it does significantly more damage, but in theory, you should be able to offset that with the buffs you get along the way that do things like it's Hades style buffs. So you could have a really good run, you could have a really bad run. Thankfully, you can exit at any point if it really seems like a bad run, and just restart. But like all the towers have some kind of a mechanic that you're dealing with, and like in addition to dealing magic damage and bonus magic damage, every time one of these these mobs died, it dropped Defile. It wasn't
Defile.
Defile?
Yeah.
It's the stuff from the Lich King fight that, is the black puddle on the ground that does damage to you. The only difference is this doesn't actually spread based on your movement. It just spreads over time. And it has an upper limit that it'll grow to, but it feels like Defile. Like Defile would like if you were in the Defile and you're moving, it's going to continue spreading until you stop moving. This just spreads at a fixed rate after they died, but it quickly runs into these problems. Like you're on these platforms that are fairly narrow. There's not a lot of room. There's no line of sight at all in this dungeon. So you have to figure out some other way of dealing with casters than line of sighting them. Well, take that back. There are a few places where you can line of sight, but it's like really scant. The first floor was a bunch of floating platforms that you have to basically teleport between. So like, there's not even much room to stand on those once the Defile starts spreading. So basically, like there's environmental challenges, there's differences in the towers, then there's the whole buff mechanic that gives you a slightly different run. And I had a really bad run initially in one of the towers, and then I came back in, I think Thursday. Actually, it was Friday afternoon, and got layer 3 clears on the 2 towers and got all my soul ash for the week. And it was pretty quick, like, I mean, maybe an hour total. for the 2 towers. So yeah, like Torcast is doing something really interesting. Like it would be interesting as a game in itself. Like, but the problem that I have is the same problem I talked about last week is other than crafting legendaries, there doesn't feel like there's much of a reason to be there other than I just want to play this randomizer. It would be cool if you could just gear yourself through it, but you can't. And like right now, there don't seem to be a lot of options for gearing. Like there are only 3 2-handed strength weapons that are available, other than a BOE world drop. There's only 1 or 2 of a thing, so everyone is going after the one thing, which is also leading to the dropout problem.
Like, it's interesting because like I don't hate the idea of chasing items. I actually quite like it. It gives me fond memories, at least, of like the silly like hey guys, I have a key and I'm like trying to put it together a group to get this item, and so I'm gonna just keep running my face into it. Like, if anyone ever wants to do a Blackrock Depths Emperor run, I can deal with the Lyceum solo, so come join my team.
Yeah, that's basically what I've been doing the last several days, is running the 3 dungeons that had a weapon that I could use over and over and over, and I just queue for all 3 at the same time, and then run through whichever one happens to pop. And technically, I will probably still do this thing because I got the worst of the 3 available weapons. But anyway, at least I have something that's heroic level that works as a DPS weapon.
So you're no longer tanking?
There's no way in hell I'm going to tank for pugs. Like, I will tank for guildies, but like, honestly, I don't. Here's the problem: is the raid or the guild that I'm in, Horde side, raids at a lousy time for me. They raid Sunday evenings, which is not a great time. So my theory is if I get used to being DPS, it's real easy for me to slide in and just join along as a DPS. And it's harder if like they're having to deal with the tank. And also I like Rep Paladins. I like Rep Paladins a lot. I find them terribly fun.
Now, does that you playing a Rep Paladin mean that you are obligated to play Blood Elf?
I am a Blood Elf by choice now because they gave Blood Elves decent beards.
You're an elf by choice.
I'm an elf by choice. It's bizarre. I'm wearing purple armor. I am leaning in.
What have you done with Belle?
I was gonna say, this seems interesting. I don't remember Belle ever liking elves.
I mean, I've never really liked elves, but like now that I can have a proper beard, I don't dislike the elves. Like maybe if they just give elves decent beards, I would have liked them all along. I don't know. Beards are real important. Playing a character that you enjoy is really important too. I was a Tauren for the longest time on my Paladin, and I ended up race changing it to Blood Elf.
Oh, so Tauren can be Paladins?
Yeah, they have been in Scata.
Yeah. Tauren can be Paladins as well as the Zandalari trolls that went in with BFA. And they're an upright yeah, they're an upright troll, and they're a much cooler looking troll than your normal average troll. You can have upright trolls and upright orcs now to where they have proper posture. You still have hunched over undead, but you can have undead without holes in their armor. You basically have a choice between like smooth skin or what they call fresh, like this mottled appearance, or like the traditional bones poking out of things appearance. So that immediately made undead more enjoyable for me because I always hated the whole, I'm going to wear the same armor as you, but it's got like half of it missing because undead. Anyway, Ash, Lancer.
So almost 2 weeks ago now, I ran a Lancer one-shot because it's been a thing I've been trying to do for some time.
How did it go?
Went pretty well. Kotra and Tem were players in it, so they can speak to how that side went.
It was really fun.
Yeah, it was great.
but I've learned some things.
Okay.
Like, I always thought... So most of my previous Lancer, most of me looking at this from the perspective of a player, in which your level 1 choices are limiting, let's say. Mm-hmm. You get one mech. You have a very limited selection of systems you can use, so on and so forth. I've come to realize some of this is for the GM's benefit as much as it is for the benefit of players. Yes. There are something like 30 NPCs, and because Lancer has rather tactical combat, you need to be familiar with the PC abilities and also the NPC ability.
Yes, I know that.
This is kept to a somewhat manageable number.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that comes up when people want to play new games is like, oh, we want to play like a higher level campaign. And I'm like,
Not at first, no.
That's hard to do. It is hard to jump into a higher level campaign because I don't know what I have to like fully understand what everybody's character is doing.
The other thing is, it's kind of cool to run a tactical combat where your goal is not to win, your goal is to make things interesting.
Yes.
Like, this is my first time running an RPG of any kind at all. And I think I find that fun. I would like to do more of it in the future.
I really enjoy it. It's like one of my favorite parts about being a DM is I am playing a game where I am actively not trying to win. Mm-hmm. Not trying to win is the most important part of being a DM.
Yes.
Well, it's the original asymmetrical gameplay mode. Because you're basically playing the world.
Yeah.
Like, you're playing everything in the world, and the players are exploring your creation.
But there's a right level of resistance that you are trying to build. This is actually where I think systems are super important in games like this, and I'm not sure how I feel about Lancers yet. I think they mostly do a good job of giving you an opportunity to not die. Like, if there are very few things in the game that cause your character to die without you having an opportunity to say, no, actually, that doesn't happen. I have seen some things that force an immediate core meltdown, which would kill you instantly. And I can't
think of anything that does that. So, like, even the Manticore, if you get destroyed in the Manticore, it melts down on your next turn. If you completely fail a reactor check, your mech melts down on your next turn.
Yeah. Is it self-destruct? It might just be self-destruct, which is your mech melts down right now, but you have to choose to do it.
But you have to willingly do that.
Yeah.
Once per day, when you die.
There's a mech
There's
for
one
that.
of those. There is a mech for that.
This game is very heavily influenced by 4th edition, and I'm loving it. As a result, I am very, very much trying to shoehorn in a build I don't think was really intended. Which is...
Oh, go for it.
Which is the Warlord, the melee support.
I mean, Exemplar is sitting right there.
Exemplar feels more like it's designed to be... Like, it is very much supporty, but it also feels tanky.
Like, Exemplar 2 is, I guess, more like a 4E mark. 4E Defender's mark.
Yeah, from the player side, one of the things that I found noticeable is your options as a starting player are super constrained. Mm-hmm. To the point where it's kind of hard to feel like your character is meaningfully unique for a bit. Compared to like 5e, yes, you have a very limited selection of things that you can do as your class, but like players playing different classes are going to be doing very different things and feel very different in what they're effective at.
Well, or even in, for example, 4e, like everyone starts with a role.
Yeah.
It feels like you're playing a level 0 character.
You essentially are.
Yeah, where you don't have a role yet. You all have basically the same stats, and that's not entirely true, but it's pretty functionally true. And then you hit level 2, and everyone becomes very different from each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also notable that level 2 is not the first time you level up.
Yes.
You level up twice, and then everybody gets different. But it leads to some interesting. I mean, it would lead to some interesting progression. The other thing that does that I think is really, really great is NPCs and players are not playing by the same rules. Like, the way you construct an NPC and the way you construct a player character are completely different, and that's good.
Yeah, that takes some getting used to.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly find it frustrating when games are like, oh, hey, players can know by knowing what you can do as a player, you can know what enemies can do.
Maybe you should scan and find out.
Yeah. I mean, and similarly, because that's true, I really like that they have a mechanic that is pretty clearly laid out for, I want to know more about this thing I'm fighting.
There's also the bit where even if you, say, read the entire GM section, you don't actually know what a given NPC has.
Yeah.
Because there are different kits of each model?
Yes. There are a million optional systems, and also you can mix and match them once you are the GM and know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a really good system, at least as far as that's concerned. Plus, having seen it, it was not something that I think I was going to dive into far enough to, like, run something myself. But, like, having seen it, I would run this game. Like, if you ever decide you want to play in one, I'd be happy to run it.
It's very cool how, like, so it's all futuristic sci-fi, post-scarcity type thing. And so any mechs you have are very much disposable, which lets you go on missions where you lose. And then it's like, well, I lose, but I got away. And so I'll just, rather than being like, well, now I don't have money, so I've lost all of my investment in my mech. No, I'm just going to go print a new one. I'll 3D print another mech, and then I'll get back to battle.
Yeah, I like that it lets you do things that are like, oh, hey, you took terrible catastrophic damage, or like you can have really cool stuff where it's like, hey, your mech got its arm ripped off, and it isn't like, hey, it isn't like, oh no, that was my good weapon arm. I'm now useless. It's like, oh, that's going to be an inconvenience for the rest of this mission.
I mean, it's definitely going to be an inconvenience for the rest of the mission. But there's a system of, like, repairs, which is, you have starting quite a few of these. So you can just, fix it between missions. I don't know, I really like the systems there. I also kind of like their narrative systems, even though the one-shot didn't really give a chance to show them off. Because it was basically a contrived situation leading to a single combat. But I appreciate that they didn't tie narrative effectiveness to combat effectiveness in any way whatsoever.
I also really like that. It is one of the things that really stands out to me and Lancer does it way better than Pathfinder 2, but it's something that I think that Pathfinder 2 also does very well. It's not quite wholly divorced from one another, but yes, I like that. It took me a moment to realize what I was doing when I was building a character, and now I'm like, oh, you can have a totally different profile as you could be the charismatic person who shoots heavy weapons.
Yes, whereas in, like, Starfighter, that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, this was somewhat true in 40, although now that I'm thinking about it, no, skills still did have a ability component.
Yep.
Like, I definitely appreciate that. It is interesting, like, they feel like their skill system is as, like, it's in the same vein as the 41.
In that it exists?
It exists, but again, doesn't exist as, like, part of the normal combat system, which was a big sticking point for people. Like, you couldn't use skills in combat. Or there wasn't any rules for them.
Yeah, in this case, that's entirely intentional. There technically are skills for them, are rules for them, rather, but the most skill-like thing you're likely to do in combat is scan, and that just works.
Makes me think of how incredibly valuable it was when having to remember to type /con on a mob gave way to just, hey, level and tier are reflected in the UI when you target a thing.
And just being able to right-click on a mob instead of having to type /hail if you want to talk to them.
Yep. But just like that bit where like knowing what kind of fight you're about to get into soon enough that you can make strategic decisions is a thing that's really hard to pull off.
I mean, that is one good thing about the sci-fi genre is scanners exist.
Yeah.
I described the scanning rules previously as spend a quick action and either get useful info or grief your GM, because you get to pick one of three things. Either like basically all the target statistics, including their systems. Or wait, no. I think it is all the target statistics, all of their systems, or personal info about that particular target. So if you want to know a particular pilot's call sign, you can scan for that.
Oh, nice.
That does mean if I run this, I'm going to have to come up with probably a way to automatically generate those. I cannot think that quickly on my feet.
Having done this, boy, I ran a space fighter game at one point, not Star Wars, but a different thing, where a bunch of things had call signs, and I did like randomly generate call signs, and one of them accidentally happened to be interesting enough that my players decided to go out of their way to disable the ship and take the pilot captive just so they could figure out what the call sign was all about. I was like,
like I said, grief your GM is an option for scan.
So how do loadouts work? Is it specific to a given like mech suit or?
Yeah.
So you as the player have a pilot, and your pilot has some mech-related stats, hull, agility, systems, and engineering. So all of your mechs get some bonuses based on those stats. Also, as you level up, you get access to licenses, which grant you both extra pieces of gear and also eventually extra mechs you can use. And when you're going to a mission, you can make a mech that is any combination of stuff you have.
Yeah, like licenses basically are things that you can use, and they unlock stuff for you to use, and then you just mix and match when you want to go on a mission.
So they're not specific to a given mech. Like a weapon works in any suit?
As long as it has the right mounts for it, yeah.
Yeah, it works on any mount point.
Aux, main, heavy, and super heavy weapons.
Yeah, so if you have like a big ass sniper rifle, that might be heavy, and not every mech has a heavy slot on it. So like different mechs have different basically hard points, but you can put any weapon you want. You know, much like in Mech Warrior, you could stick like 5 ERPPCs on some tiny thing, but you're going to overheat the second you fire it. That's absolutely a thing you can
do that here too, yes.
So I always thought, like, for a mech suit game, a card-style loadout system would work really well. Where, like, you know, I don't know, like, say you have a bunch of different manufacturers of suits. Well, like, each of their specific weapons might have specific traits. So, like, this one may overheat faster but do more damage, or this one might...
Yeah, this kind of exists.
The designers kind of wanted to avoid small trade-offs like that, though. So a lot of there are some examples, like say shock knives are definitely going to overheat you if you try to use 5 of them in one turn, and the normal GMS dagger won't, but it does a little less damage. But there are specific manufacturers, and they do definitely specialize a bit.
There's a weapon that just always deals 10 damage, and it gives you 10 heat when you use it.
There is no mech with a heat cap of 10. So you have to put a bunch into engineering and also maybe do some other things to handle firing that.
Yeah, I feel like all of the mechs that are all about heat management, it's just a big list of bad ideas mechs.
I mean, you have the one with the giant flamethrower. You have the one that wants to overheat itself and also carry some lightsabers. You have the one that is just a giant bundle of electricity and also explodes very, very, very readily.
I feel like a mech that wants to overheat itself, but then uses that heat as a weapon might be interesting.
Yeah, that's a thing. So there's
several things, actually.
There's the concept of the danger zone. Once you are at half heat, you are in the danger zone, and there's a lot of things you can do that are like, when you're in the danger zone, this thing gets awesome. So when you are hot but not overheated, you're great, and then you're trying to figure out how you manage your heat from there.
There is also one specific example of a mech that wants to overheat. Harrison Armory mechs are all named after conquerors, and one of theirs is the Genghis, which is just a big giant flamethrower mech. One of it's basically once per day abilities. Mechs have core abilities that you get to use once per mission, basically. It is, if you would overheat, don't, and blow up everything around you.
Seems like a fun idea.
There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do. I really, really like horizontal progression games.
Yeah, that's the other thing. While your personal stats do go up a bit, they have caps that are very low. Mostly you just get new stuff to put on your mech, or alternate choices of mechs you could have.
Yeah. So it'll be like, so you could be like, hey, I really like setting stuff on fire. Maybe I'm going to have the big tanky set stuff on fire mech. Maybe I'm going to have the blow people up from a range set people on fire mech.
Maybe I'm going to cross licenses between those two to make everyone on fire.
Yeah.
Or maybe I am trying to build a specific nonsense thing, so I'm going to pick a little bit of licenses from all over the place.
But it also means that your missions can be really, really specific, which is cool. Because that's one thing that I've always found very hard to do as a DM in D&D games is it's the classic stealth mission problem. No one ever wants to do them because there's always somebody in the party who isn't good at that. And so, like, there's this entire dynamic that you just don't get to ever explore because you don't have a party full of people who can stealth things.
There is also the in this game, it would probably be, I want to go on a mission in space, which is a completely different type of terrain than, like, I'm going to go to a mission on the ground. But, like, everyone starts with access to the EVA system.
Yep.
Which lets you do space missions. So, like, yeah, you're going to have to spend a systems point to install the EVA system so you can fly around in space.
Or maybe you already have a Duskwing and you don't need to spend that point.
Yeah, maybe your mech just flies. And that's cool, too. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that I really like as far as, you know, the further along you get, the more you can be like, we're going to be doing a very specific thing here. Load yourself out to do this very specific thing.
Yeah, again, especially given the structure of something like Lancer, where you probably have a mission briefing.
Yep.
This is a thing you can just do.
And especially dovetails into other types of gameplay where it's like, hey, we have this mission, but, like, we don't have enough information about this mission. Let's do some side quests, basically, to get that are going to unlock more information about this mission. Or we just drop in blind and maybe it'll be a disaster. That'll be fine. Or something.
I mean, there's only so bad it could go.
It's true.
Okay, we're getting close to time, and I think Phelan specifically would want to be involved in that next topic. Anything short anybody wants to talk about real quick?
Can't think of anything.
I don't think so.
Then I guess we're going to follow up a long show with a I think, a slightly short show. Hopefully you enjoyed the things we talked about. If you have been seeking a PS5, let us know, because I'm curious, like, have other people had luck, or is it just us that have failed? And I think nobody's had luck.
I am probably going to try in a little bit. I'm worried I'm, like, going to find that it does not get easier.
I would say
the Switch eventually did.
I expect so from what I've heard from a number of places and people is that post Christmas it's going to get a lot easier quickly. If what you want is a PS5, if what you want is an Xbox, I have heard that it's more like March. Yeah, well,
it is a PS5 is what I want, and so yeah, that's exciting. Because I was going to play the game of what am I going to be able to get first, a PS5 or a COVID vaccine?
Oh,
probably a PS5.
Yeah, probably.
But yes,
I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm very low on the list for a COVID vaccine.
Yup.
So yeah.
And on that fun note, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we'll see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
See ya.